And we are live. Welcome to this final spring training episode of the Bullpen Cart presented by ThunderblogSports.com. The NL East. We are at the final stages of spring training. And joining me, as always, is my man, the prophet himself, Greg Piatelli. How are you?
Opening day Thursday.
Opening day Thursday, baby.
Pumped for it. It sucks that the reigning World Series champions are on the road for like the first 2 weeks of the season. I want to say absurd, like double-digit number of games that they're playing before they get a home series. So kind of ridiculous. They're starting on the West Coast, doing a West Coast swing. And that would be the Red Sox, of course. And because they're playing 2 games in London, the MLB is giving them like X amount of days off before and after the game. So their days off when they're during the season when they're in, like they play a bunch of back-to-back games consecutively because of this whole London series. But Jordy, those sounds like excuses, but the best teams cut through the excuses. I'm more excited to talk about what is probably the hardest and most hardest to discuss, and most everyone has the most opinions about this division, and that would be, of course, the NL East.
Yes, I am excited as well. And just to let everyone know, opening day at the Red Sox, April 9th. So, yeah, you got about 2 weeks from tonight. We're recording this on Tuesday night. Wanted to get you a full day to listen to this podcast before opening day on Thursday.
Yeah, the NL East, Greg. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, do they do any sort of like renovations at Fenway? I know they've done that before where they've pushed back Fenway opening day.
No, it's just because they have the West Coast swing, and they like last year they did a West Coast swing, but they did it was like end of April.
Yeah, I mean, you knock off Seattle and Oakland right away though, so you might as well do it now when it's cold and shitty weather in Boston, and by the time, hopefully by April 9th, it's more spring type weather.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Thursday in Philadelphia is projected to be, I think, like 50 degrees. I'm checking it now. Yeah, Philly's opening day, high of 58, low of 47. They have a day off on a day that it's a high of 62. Saturday afternoon, high of 72, some actual spring weather, and I'm hoping it does not rain on Sunday because I am going to that game. Opening night, and I get a free T-shirt. Very excited about it. But
humble brag, how'd you get tickets to that?
A buddy of mine bought it on a ticket app. I'm not going to say the name because they do not pay us to say their name.
Nice.
I'll leave it
no
at that.
Free ads. Good for you.
No free ads, baby. But yes, NL East, Greg, you encapsulated it perfectly. This division, probably the hardest to rank and to predict how it's all going to happen. Vegas is showing it in terms of over-under of odds, and a lot of different reasons for it. Each team brings something unique to the table, whether they're the clear fifth, which we'll get to, whether they have studs in their starting area, in their starting rotation, not starting area. They have awesome young talent, which a couple teams in this division do. They signed one of the better players in the free agent market to add to an already close enough team. They made a couple other moves we'll get to. I'm trying to be vague here,
A close enough team.
They were leading the division on July 31st. They were a playoff team, and on September 1st, they were 2 games out of the playoff.
But hey, no one rooted harder as a non-fan than this guy.
Except for 2 years ago when you'd remind me how close the Phillies were to last place.
Right, but I was rooting for them not to win in last place.
Which fan favorite Pablo Sandoval prevented. I think the Tigers also finished behind the Phillies in 2017, but last in the National League was prevented because of Pablo Sandoval.
No.
Or no, they didn't get the last they didn't finish in last because of Pablo Sandoval. They finished ahead of the Tigers. That's what it was. We're talking, of course, about the Giants, but not NL East. Yeah, very tough to predict. For those that are new to the spring training podcast, which I know there are some out there who, Greg, they tuned into a little bit, or maybe not to any of the pods. They were waiting for this one specifically. So, no pressure, Greg, but We got the good in here, the real cream of the crop of listeners, or I guess the full crop. But if you're new to this, we first look at every team in alphabetical order by city, and then we rank the teams at the very end. One of the teams we're probably going to spoil where we have them ranking. I already alluded to it before. But, Greg, we start with the Atlanta Braves. Last year's National League East champions. They fell to the Dodgers in, I believe it was 4 games in the National League Division Series. And Atlanta comes in having made a signing of Josh Donaldson at third base. And, Greg, what are your thoughts on this team coming in to 2019?
I mean, they stood pat, right?
Basically.
They stood pat. They added Brian McCann and Josh Donaldson, two veterans.
That's a good point. They brought back Brian McCann.
Right. Yeah, 2 veterans that can help lead and hopefully shape the young guys for the positive. And they had some guys who overperformed last year. And basically they were able to be in the position they were last year because of how weak the division was last year, and that's mainly the reason. Yeah, they played well and they got some good production, but it really was the collapse of one team that allowed them to make the playoffs, to get into the playoffs and get in that spot, and allowed their young guys to get that experience. But lightning never, rarely, or if ever strikes twice. So for me, staying pat really says to me they're not willing to sell the farm for this year or next year. They're looking to build for the long term, which they can do because they have the talent in the field and they have the talent on the pitching staff. Need bullpen help, but Jordy, tell me as a GM, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you do with this if you were this team last year? As the GM of the Braves, what would you do this offseason? Will you have all the young talent? You made it to the playoffs. You lost in the first round. Would you stand pat or add some veteran guys like McCann and Donaldson like they did? Or would you go out and try and sign a Harper and throw the money away? Then you have to get rid of Acuna Jr. down the line or whoever else.
No, I think it was the right move to stay pat. I mean, you won the division. You won 90 games with this. And, yeah, you fall to the Dodgers in 4 games, which stinks. But that Dodgers team, as we've talked about, they really went in last year in trying to pull away with this, and they almost pulled a Columbus Blue Jackets, what the Blue Jackets might do right now, but different pod, different day. To your point, though, they did beat up on the American or the National League East last year. They had double-digit wins against all 4 of their opponents, including the Nationals, who was the closest. They went 10-9 against, but 12-4 against 12-7 against the Phillies, 14-5 against the Marlins, which not hard to do. 13-6 against the Mets, who played very well against other National League East opponents. And in terms of overperforming, it'll be really interesting to see how some of their young guys perform this year, because you saw Ozzie Albies come off to such a hot start, and he continued that power-wise. I mean, he had 24 homers, 72 ribbies, finished the season with a 261 average, over 300 on base percentage, so you like to see that. Acuna was the one who we talked about last year of when was he going to come up on this preview. There was a little bit of service day hoarding by the Braves, so he only played 111 games, still amounted to 26 homers, only 64 ribbies, a lot of strikeouts, 123, which comes in as a team second best or worst, depending on your view of strikeouts. But yeah, guys, the 2 guys that led the way, Nick Markakis, who they re-signed this offseason, and Freddie Freeman. And it'll be really interesting. I think Freeman certainly has the skill to continue that. Markakis, another veteran guy who's been around the block a few times. We'll have to see what he does.
And he overperformed last year. Markakis did, and
yeah, I'm agreeing with you there. Certainly,
and so did Fulton and Witz. Their pitching.
Fulton Evans, yeah.
Yeah, thank
Mike
you.
Fulton Evans, who turned out to be their ace. You're absolutely right. And I mean, to be fair, he was he made up a little bit for a bit of a down year for guys on their roster who were hurt for part of the year, like Julio Teheran, who had a down year, guys who were hurt a little bit that didn't necessarily make all of their starts, like Anibal Sanchez. Brandon McCarthy was a starting pitcher for them for a little while too, and that might have been part of the reason why they were able to come on so strong. Guys like Sean Newcomb were really strong for him. So we'll see if where their lineup kind of falls there. They had Kevin Gausman. They picked him up from Baltimore towards the end of last year, and that seemed to help out with them. And he in 10 starts posted 2.87 ERA. But I think that's probably the best question, though, is where do they fall in 2019 in terms of their performance?
Yeah, and I mean, Freddie Freeman, you mentioned it, Ronald Acuna, and then Donaldson all can put up huge monster MVP type numbers. At least the Freddie Freeman and Donaldson have been in the conversation, and Acuna the way he played last year. The issue, I guess, is the bullpen for this team and Craig Kimbrel out there. There was rumors that they would pick him up, but again, it doesn't seem like the GM is willing to sell out on these long-term contracts or anyone in the that's not a rookie because of how young they are and how bright the future is. Jordy, this team won 90 games last year. Do they do it again?
Yeah, it's a great question. Vegas has them set for 2019 at 86.5, which I like the over of 86.5. I like the under of 90. I see them around 88 wins in 2018.
Nice.
Or 2019, excuse me.
Yeah,
what year is it?
I'm going under as well. Let's move on to alphabetical order here, and then at the end, like Jordy mentioned, we'll give our standings and why. Miami Marlins.
Yes.
Jordy.
Greg, they made a lot of acquisitions for the future. Is that the best way to put it?
Is Curtis Granderson for the future?
Veteran presence?
I mean, you're talking about a team that lost D. Gordon, Christian Yelich, Giancarlo Stanton, JT Realmuto, like all their guys who that performed well for them as of 2 years ago.
Yep.
And now are gone. And Realmuto, they should have traded him last year, but they didn't. They could have gotten assets back for him.
They could have gotten assets back. They got from the Phillies. They got Jorge Alfaro, who is major league ready. He was a highly touted catching prospect for the Phillies for a while. And has been up in the bigs for a couple of years. They got Sixto Sanchez, who immediately becomes one of the Marlins' top prospects. He's MLB.com's number 27 overall. He was a piece, just for reference, of the Phillies were not willing to give up when they were in the talks of trading players or trying to trade prospects if they were dumping somebody. So the fact that the Phillies were parted ways to get Realmuto and add him on says a lot, and we'll talk about that acquisition in a little bit. But yeah, they also picked up Riley Farrell from a waiver claim from the Astros. He immediately gets to their number 21 prospect, another right-handed pitcher there. But then a lot of other veteran guys. You mentioned Curtis Granderson. They got Sergio Romo, who we might remember as an opener from last year. Neil Walker. So, nothing over the top for this Marlins team. And sadly, if you're a Marlins fan, which, I don't want, and I'm not going to take a pot shot at them. It's going to be a long enough year. It's going to be a long year for the Marlins is the basis here. I mean, their pitching staff is going to be really interesting to see. Yahoo doesn't even have a starting right fielder on their depth chart, which is astounding that they didn't even think to code that in. But yeah, Greg, it's gonna be a long year for the Miami Marlins.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you mentioned it. I mean, Curtis Granderson, Brian Anderson, Neil Walker. I mean, Sterling Castro, Garrett Cooper. They have more Yankees on this team. Again.
Yeah. The best way to try to put it is that
Castro.
this team
I mean,
takes the flyers on prospects that have come up into the majors and not necessarily have had the greatest years. The prime example is Lewis Brinson, who was one of the bigger names in terms of Brewers prospects for a while. He came up in 2017, and then started going up and down between the minors. The Marlins picked him up in the Yelich trade, and he played most of the season last year. But scratch that about 2/3.
If you're building for the future, sorry to cut you off, but if you're building for the future, right?
You're probably going to make my point, so please continue.
Yeah, but if you're building for the future, yeah, why get rid of Yelich, right? Why get rid of Realmuto? Why do you have Sterling Castro?
Can you pronounce their former catcher's name again?
And then go sign Sergio Ramos, the 36-year-old reliever from Tampa Bay, or Curtis Granderson, the 38-year-old outfield free agent who hasn't been the same Curtis Granderson that he ever was from before. I mean, the moves are baffling.
Absolutely. Greg, MLB.com has on their list of acquisitions, they put the big names up, and then they put a lot of different other players in there. Some of these other players are names you might recognize, like Pedro Alvarez. I mean, this is a lot of the moves that they're making. Other guys are prospects who are not necessarily up there.
And like
Greg, it's going to be
their starting pitchers are young. Okay, so they have 3 guys who are 25 and younger. The other 2 are 27. So they have young starting pitchers. Okay, cool. We're going to rock with young pitchers. But then you're going to go out and give them a lineup with Curtis Granderson, who's 38. Neil Walker, who's 33. Hasn't been relevant in forever. Sterling Castro is basically 30. I mean, not that that's old, but that's. And then you have Sergio Ramos, who's 39 years old in the bullpen. I mean, what do we? I don't know, man. You're telling your fan base, you're telling a lot of people you're punting for the next 10 years. I don't know what it is, but I mean, if you're going to give up Giancarlo, why take Sterling Castro? Like he clearly is not going to help you. Like he's not going to help you. He's not going to help. You're not helping the player, so why take him? Why not get more better prospects?
I really can't give you a better answer than that.
Yeah. Let's move on. This team is so frustrating.
Yeah. Quick over-under pick, 63.5.
Jeter, by the way. Fucking Jeter.
Fucking Jeter, man. 63.5. Greg, if you bet the over there, you're going to make money if you win that. It's plus 110 at 63.5, minus 140 for the under.
What'd they win last year?
63 on the dot.
Well, yeah. You know what? Fuck it. I'm a money guy. I'll take the over.
You're gonna win some money. I'm gonna go under. I think you made the point on the Braves, and I think the division being stronger just does not bode as well for the Marlins. And we'll talk a little bit why in a few minutes with another team. But the next team we move on to, Greg, is the New York Mets, the Metropolitans, who a lot of people are pretty excited about. Greg, you want to tell us a couple reasons why people are excited about the 2019 New York Mets?
So the Mets went out and got Robinson Cano, Jed Lowry, Wilson Ramos, Keon Broxton, Yuris Familia, Justin Wilson, Edwin Diaz.
Brought back Yuris Familia.
All right. And who they really lost? Who did they really lose, Jordy? Jose Ramirez? Jose Reyes, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Jose Reyes. Like, who did they really lose? The only issue with the Mets, per usual, is to start the year, Todd Frazier, Jed Lowry, Yoenis Cespedes, all doubtful and Yoenis Cespedes is questionable for who knows when. They have no idea when he's coming back. They're thinking All-Star break.
Yep.
But Frazier and Lowry are definitely not starting the season. Playing right away. But the point with the Mets, just like every year, is pitching staff unreal. DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, Matz, Vargas. Unreal. great pitchers. I mean, they have some guys on offense. They're better offensively than what they were the last couple of years to match that pitching. But it always comes down to injuries with the Mets. Always comes down to what will they do next. Last year, 77 wins. And they were, I guess, in it, you could say, for a little bit. But, Jordy, a lot of homegrown talent on this New York Mets team.
Yeah, it's usually a theme of the Mets. They are big on bringing up their own guys. They've made other signings, throughout the past. Obviously, they brought in Pedro Martinez at one point. They got Jason Bay. A number of different guys that have come through the system though that have really left their impact on the franchise. And if the Mets performed last year how they did against the NL East, they might have won the division. I'll put it that way. They won 11 games against the Phillies, against the Nationals, 12 against the Marlins. Now they went 6-13 against Atlanta. They finished 13 games back. So even if you put that up to, let's just say 10-9, you're still 9 games back. That just tells you how they didn't really perform very well outside of the NL East. So you can't even blame the strong division, weak division argument there. They're actually a decent road team. But the thing with the Mets, the pitching staff is probably the best in the NL East, maybe the best in the National League. Health is certainly of a concern. I'm actually really excited to see, though, where this lineup goes, that they are a team that I do already have tickets for to see in the middle of April when they first come to Philadelphia for a day game. Pretty excited for that. But it's going to be really interesting to see where they go, because depending on how healthy they are, they can take this lineup a number of different ways in terms of small ball, in terms of trying to incorporate the long ball. Obviously, getting Cespedes back whenever he does is going to add a large, emphasis on the long ball there. But it's going to, like with a couple other teams in this division, the bullpen's going to be a question for them. Adding Edwin Diaz, the back end of their bullpen in that trade from the Mariners, should help, certainly. But yeah, you're right. Health is of the utmost concern for the New York Metropolitans.
And I mean, you're talking about Frazier, Lowry, and Cespedes, who all outfield, infield guys. But Jordy, let me just read something to you, which I find pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mets projected opening day. First round pick, second round pick, first round pick, free agent or 10th round pick, first round pick, 12th round pick, and then Wilson Ramos. It doesn't say what I'm looking at where he was drafted, but my point is that this team is stocked full of first and second round picks, and you can put stock into whatever you want to put into that, because obviously first round, second round doesn't mean much. Tom Brady key in that argument, but there is something to be
former Mike Piazza.
Yeah, I mean there is something to be said about guys who aren't necessarily top picks. But my point is that
history.
What'd you say? Uh-oh. Lost Jordy. 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 Jordy?
Hey,
Hey,
sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
you good?
Got the boot. I heard like in and out of you talking about the draft picks being number ones, and then right after I said Mike Piazza, it started going in and out. And then eventually you lost me.
Yeah, no, I stopped talking after Mike Piazza, so perfect.
Oh, okay, cool. Cool. Did you ask me a question or something?
Just say your Piazza point again, and then I'll continue what I was saying.
Okay, cool. All right. In 3, 2, 1. Or former Met Mike Piazza, lowest Hall of Famer ever in terms of draft position.
That's really impressive. I didn't know that. So my point being about these first round picks, 10th round picks, first round, second round picks is, again, all these homegrown players, there's a lot of talent, right? Because that's how, if you're first round pick, people think you have talent on paper at least. And on paper, this Mets team for a couple years has always been that sort of, oh, we have talent, but we have talent, but we have talent, but. And to me, everyone keeps saying their pitching is key. Can they stay healthy? Their bullpen is key. Can they stay healthy? Can the bullpen get them wins? Hold the starters win, because the starters, right? Jordy, isn't this a Mets team? The starters pitch 8 strong innings, and then the bullpen comes in and blows it 8th, 9th inning. So I have a feeling it's the same story, different year for the Mets, but I mean that's my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously you don't want to root for that kind of stuff of injury troubles that guys like Noah Syndergaard had last year. You've seen Steven Matz have it throughout the years. You obviously don't want to root for that kind of stuff. You want them to be competitive. You want to see what they can do. You want to beat them at their best. And we'll see what ends up happening with these guys, because it'll be complete Jekyll and Hyde, right? If they're just unhealthy throughout the year and it's not a competitive division, not a competitive team, and putting up everything that way. It'll.
Sorry.
No, you're good. But all I was going to say was that I think their offense could be good. I think there's still a lot of holes, even at fully healthy, because it's, you have to wonder what's Robinson Cano going to do. He's a big name, but even last year after the suspension, he wasn't the best hitter like he was the first couple years in Seattle when he was a Yankee. Todd Frazier didn't have the greatest year last year. I know he was a little banged up. Obviously, Cespedes is he was banged up for a lot of the year. Wilson Ramos is certainly a welcome addition and a welcome upgrade at catcher. It'll be really interesting to see what Jed Lowry does. That outfield, Nimmo should be pretty good. He was pretty good last year, especially against the Phillies, but that's neither here nor there. Conforto probably leading the way, though, in terms of statistically, but we'll see what these guys do, because they had a year where, like you said right at the top of talking about this team, they hung in for a little bit, and then really bad June kind of put them in this position, and May as well. Their May wasn't that great, but they put themselves in too big of a hole where they played above 500 baseball in the second half of the year, and they still finished with 77 wins. So
yeah, and I just have a feeling that they are seeing the writing on the wall in they're seeing the writing on the wall in terms of like their pitchers aren't getting any younger. That sort of win now, and that to me, the moves of Cano and Lowry and things like that guys that are sort of not tail end of their career, but they have their contracts. They're older, so they could retire earlier, and their contracts would end earlier, whatever it may be. The point is that they're making these moves for the now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're trying to capitalize on the starting staff while it's still together. I mean, they just inked DeGrom today to an extension. I would think if you're a Mets fan, I would think you're hoping for this, that they do the same for Syndergaard and keep him as long as you can. But who knows what happens to Nats, to Wheeler, to guys like Gesselman, and how the rest of their pitching staff will go down the line. So you're absolutely right where they're going for now, and they're trying to get the older guys, hopefully hoping that they're catching them at the right time on the tail end of everything, and that it can all click and work out. So you can't blame them for the starting staff they have. And like you mentioned, a lot of on paper talent. I think their farm system still pumping out a number of different guys down on those lower tiered levels, AA, AAA, what have you. So why not try to add some more and more veteran talent, if you will, to help them out.
Do you like the move for Cano?
I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. Jeff McNeil actually did a decent job for him last year, I believe. But Cano, he adds a veteran presence. I know he got popped last year for PEDs and whatnot, but he still adds a veteran presence that has a World Series ring. So maybe he helps out with some of the younger guys on the team. Maybe he ends up having a resurgence coming back east. But yeah, you really have to hope he improves. You have to hope when Frazier's healthy, he improves, because he batted .213 last year, Greg. So really all these big names and kind of underperforming in 2018, they're really hoping that they have bounce back years. Hopefully they're hoping they're not dead cat bounces, but they're hoping for a bounce nonetheless.
I love it.
I had to throw in a financial term in there, but
do we want to move on to?
Well, before we do that, 85.5. It's even odds, or not even, but same odds over under at minus 115. Which, I mean, I guess that's fair because you don't want to predict health one way or the other, because the wise guys would be all over it one side or the other of how to smartly bet that. So, Greg, what do you have at 85.5?
Yikes. I'm going to say under.
I too say under for the Nets.
Under.
Are you ready, Greg?
Oh boy.
We move on to the Philadelphia Phillies. My favorite team of all sports, but maybe
all sports, huh?
Yeah, number one of the four in Philadelphia. Phillies, Flyers, Eagles, Sixers for anybody paying attention. But yes, the Philadelphia Phillies come into the 2019 season, obviously having signed Bryce Harper, trading for Greg. What was the catcher for Miami's name again they traded for?
Andrew McCutchen.
They signed Andrew McCutchen, but he was not the catcher on the Miami Marlins. What was his name?
David Robertson.
He is a bullpen guy that they signed who used to be on the Yankees. So close, because the Marlins are basically just junior Yankees. But the catcher, who's
Gene Segura.
Welcome addition, also received from a trade, but from the Mariners.
Bryce Harper.
He was signed for a lot of money, stupid money, if you will, but not from the Marlins. He was signed from a different division team.
Not the highest signed guy either.
You know what?
I said he's not the highest. He doesn't have the largest contract in the MLB.
And he doesn't care.
Vince Velasquez.
Not a free agent. He's been on the team for a number of years now.
Juan Nicasio.
Are you talking about Juan Nicasio? the reliever?
Yes, sir.
I mean, there's also a mispronunciation. I'm talking about JT Realmuto, not Real Muto, or however you're pronouncing it before.
Sir Anthony Dominguez.
Yes, Sir Anthony Dominguez, a part of now an interesting back end of the bullpen, which we now have a nice trio.
Might be my favorite.
He is your boy. He's your boy. Yeah. If you're new to the Bullpen Cart podcast, we do every week. We do a Phillies talk. We do a little Red Sox talk. Greg every week asks about Sir Anthony Dominguez. It's his guy. But yeah, we jumping right in to, instead of trying to get Greg to pronounce different players on the Phillies' last names. The 2019 Phillies come in. They've upgraded both offensively, and it's pretty obvious to see that. There's all the different numbers out there. Bryce Harper's career at Citizens Bank Park. They bring in some vets like a McCutchen, a former MVP, to kind of help even before they had Harper, to kind of corral the outfield. Harper obviously adds a lot of talent there. Segura is a welcome addition because he's a great leadoff hitter and he's a much better defensive option than Scott Kingery was at shortstop. You bring in Realmuto, who's probably one of, if not the best catcher in baseball. He improves on Jorge Alfaro and Andrew Knapp's combined numbers, both offensively and, again, defensively. And that's something, as a Phillies fan, and if you are a Phillies fan listening to this, that's probably, it's going to be talked about, certainly, because their defense was atrocious last year. But the fact that they're going to be beyond competent, because they were fairly incompetent defensively last year, I cannot stress that enough. The fact that they're actually going to be solid defensively is huge, because yes, their offense is going to be great. And to kind of put a point on that, Greg, their leadoff hitter for most of the season last year is tentatively batting 7th on opening day on Thursday. The guy who is at points batting 2nd, at points batting 5th, sometimes 6th, 7th, is batting 8th, Michael Franco. The guy who sometimes was your 2-hitter, sometimes was expected to be your 3-hitter in front of Rhys Hoskins, is batting 6th in Odubel Herrera. And the 1, 2, 3 are all off-season acquisitions. Your 5 hitters, Realmuto. The offense is going to be great, but defense cannot be understated.
Rhys isn't hitting 4th?
No, Rhys is hitting 4th. So right now it's tentatively it's Segura, McCutchen, Harper, Hoskins, Realmuto, Odubel Herrera, Cesar Hernandez, and Michael Franco, and then Aaron Nola, who's the starting pitcher. But then the point Herrera I'm getting at is
the league leader or the team leader in like every category last year.
Yeah. And one point that a lot of people were making was that, or a theory, I should say, that a lot of people and have been retweeting, is to see how Odubel Herrera becomes a fan favorite, because he's no longer going to have to be expected to be the guy on the Phillies. He doesn't have to be the hitter or the second best hitter behind Rhys Hoskins. He can, be that guy on the back half of the lineup, where instead of hitting 22 homers and 71 RBIs and batting 250 to show for it, maybe that average goes up, and he keeps those power numbers like we've seen in 2017, a little bit in 2016.
Yeah, and I thought that last year he got a bad rap because he put up big numbers.
He was really inconsistent last year. I mean,
well, he put up big
numbers.
Franco
led the team in batting average.
I was gonna say he played sparingly down the stretch.
Who, Herrera?
Yeah.
No, he played. He was playing. He wasn't starting every day. He was
right.
I mean, he and Gabe the Babe had a little bit of I believe, a little bit of a tiff. Roman Quinn was also healthy in the second half of the season, and he was a speedy and defensive option who did have a better batting average, not nearly the same power numbers. But yeah, Herrera, in theory, should be your starting center fielder, and is for opening day right now. And you're right. I think he got a little bit of a bad rap. He was so inconsistent and had, at times just, really bad, really bad stretches in the second half really encapsulated that, where he was getting sat for a little bit of it. And, he didn't end up playing as many games as we would have thought. He only played 148 out of the 162. Only Carlos Santana and Cesar got to that number for the team.
So let's talk about, since we're doing a way more in-depth analysis than the average or the casual fan about the Phillies, let's talk about their big signing. Let's talk about the sexy signing, Bryce and JT at catcher. Let's talk about those two guys. $400 million they've spent this offseason between Robertson, McCutchen, and Harper. The Phillies did. Because Robinson is a huge bullpen help for them, which their bullpen struggled last year. So,
absolutely did.
Give me, without adding a starting pitcher, really, did this team do enough?
So that's what I was getting at, is the pitching staff. I think they did enough to be certainly a contender for a wild card spot. I think they're going to get in. Whether it's wild card or division winner still remains to be seen in my book. I've seen a lot of comparisons online to the 2008 team, which had a young stud in Cole Hamels, pretty, machine-like offense that could pump out runs at will. A veteran pitcher, in Jamie Moyer. They added a guy at the trade deadline in Joe Blanton. And then a couple, other starting pitchers that were, more role players, if you're going to think of it in a basketball-like term. And then a solid back half of the bullpen, which, as you just mentioned, adding Robertson helps out and solidifies that a little more. You can use Sir Anthony Dominguez because Gabe the Babe doesn't like to put labels on it. You can use him as your 8th inning guy. You can still use him as your 9th inning guy, as they did last year, because you have Robertson to basically trade spots with that. You don't have to worry about the health of Pat Neshek and overusing him, or whether or not you are. You don't have to rely as heavily on Tommy Hunter, who I'm still, not a big fan of, and it'll be nice to not have to see him when there's a save situation in the, the late innings of the game, 7th, 8th, 9th inning, and putting the game on his back there. Because you're right, last year the bullpen really did struggle, and you saw a lot of it with the starting rotation when this team started to struggle and as you so eloquently put it, collapsed in the second half of this, in the last third of the season, really. No, but it was frustrating seeing them play. I mean, we can talk about my over-under bet last year and how I thought I was going to get bad beated on a 12-game losing streak.
And Gabe the Babe is a great manager.
Yeah, I think
people were calling for his head.
No, well, people didn't like the start last year. You have to remember, despite the fact that they were up 2 games, or they were down 2 games in the division entering September 1st, they had a really shitty August. You have to remember they had a really bad start of April. And there was also the whole thing where he brought in a reliever who hadn't even thrown any warm-up pitches. There was a lot of crazy stuff. The pulling Aaron Nola in the 5th inning of the first game of the season, when Nola had injury struggles in 2017. There was a lot of stuff that, the first impression was a little rough, but I think by the end of the year, I was certainly a fan. And I think he had turned a lot of the fan base. I don't think the sushi people comment that Joe Madden made about him made about Philadelphia fans and the need of sophistication happened. I think, the on the field product, I think, is going to improve, and you're going to see it in terms of fans showing up too. But kind of just to reiterate on the bullpen, having that solid trio of Robertson, Dominguez, and Neshek, and not having to think that you have to overuse a Neshek, a Hunter, Nicasco that you were talking about before, Jose Alvarez, and Adam Morgan too. I mean, Morgan, I think, he's a little more if it's you batting down the hatches because it's going to be a long day at the ballpark. But I mean, who knows? Maybe he has a resurgence.
This team, I feel like, is relying on resurgence from guys like McCutchen and things like that. So, I mean, I guess McCutchen at some point won't necessarily be an everyday. It would be like a 3 out of 5, I should say.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what they end up doing in terms of both left field and third base. Left field's where McCutchen's playing currently. Third base has Michael Franco, and I don't know if they've come out right in saying that they'll be doing any sort of platooning. That was the heavily believed rumor in spring training for third base specifically, where Michael Franco and Scott Kingery were in a position battle. Franco obviously won the opening day job, but I wouldn't discount Kingery there. You saw him play a little bit of third base last year as well, especially after they picked up Asdrubal Cabrera. Think about this, Greg. At one point they had Asdrubal Cabrera, Odubel Herrera batting back to back. So real tongue twister there. But my point being is that left field could be the same way there. You still have Aaron Altair, who was in desperate need of a bounce back here after a really shitty 2018. Nick Williams is just sitting on the bench waiting for his shot. And I'm sure he's probably a little bit bummed that, one of the best free agents on the market was signed and is bringing his team immediately into a playoff contender. But I think before, if the Phillies had lost out on the Bryce Harper sweet states, he was going to be your right fielder, at least against right-handed pitching, because lefties he doesn't do so well against. So, it'll be really intriguing to see what the two of them do, Altair and Williams, to try to crack their way into the lineup and crack their way off the bench in terms of using good old National League baseball like Gabe the Babe does.
Love Gabe the Babe. Before we get down to the Phillies rat hole, which we already are, Jordy, round out the division, Washington Nationals. Once we do the over-under for Phillies win, what do they say it is?
So it's 89.5, Greg, which I put a little bit of money down on the over, and I got it before the odds went up. I had it at minus 115. Now Vegas has it at minus 130.
89.5, and they
have to win 90 games. Last year they won 80.
Is Bryce Harper a 10 game? I mean, the division's that much better.
Division's a lot better.
Is Bryce Harper a 10 win
Bryce
difference?
Harper, Realmuto, Segura, McCutchen to a certain degree, Robertson to a certain degree.
Are they a 10 win difference without bolstering their starting pitching? But they did bolster the bullpen, so I'll give them that. Yeah, you know what, Jordy, I'm going to go over as well.
All right, my wallet thanks you. The one last point on the starting pitching that I didn't really see when Eichhoff gets healthy, if Velasquez remains there. It seemed like he was going to while Eichhoff was still healthy, but Velasquez could also be a pretty good back end of the bullpen guy with the fastball he throws. Pivetta and Eflin both had pretty solid years. When they were on, they both had pretty low down back halves of the year. Pivetta, a sleeper starting pitcher in terms of bouncing back this year. So if the fantasy experts at Yahoo are saying anything, maybe that's a good sign. Hopefully there's some consistency, because while the team and the offense was producing, you saw a little more consistency out of them. But if two of those three guys are on in over the five-man rotation, the back half, I'm going to be fine with that. But Washington Nationals, Greg, rounding out the division. Obviously, they lost Bryce Harper, but they don't have to worry. That it's not all frowns over at Nationals Park. You want to tell us why?
Yes, they lost Bryce Harper, Kelvin Herrera, Matt Waiters, Tanner Roark, Gio Gonzalez, but they added Patrick Corbin, one of the better pitchers in the league, Anibal Sanchez, the guy who was robbed of a perfect game, Yan Gomes, Kurt Suzuki, Brian Dozier, Trevor Rosenthal, two catchers essentially. The argument is, and the things people are saying is that, yes, they lost Bryce Harper, but in theory, this is a better team because of Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin at the top of their pitching rotation, as well as how deep their lineup is. Guys like Trey Turner, Zimmerman, Rendon, Juan Soto, who had a good rookie year last year, looking for him to turn out again this year. Trey Turner, plus Howie Kendrick starting the year on the DL again, 50 years old from the Phillies, and then Michael Taylor,
sort of Philly for like a hot second.
Michael Taylor is sort of a younger guy, but
Michael A. Taylor, you must remember. You must point that out.
Right. The depth on this team is pretty impressive, and obviously their starting pitching rotation rivals that of the Mets. Have they said who their fifth starter would be?
Yeah, I don't have the official word. I have here Jeremy Hellickson, which would be really interesting to see. He was a former Philly that did okay.
He was on Baltimore last year.
And he was on Baltimore for the last year and a half. The Phillies ditched him to the Orioles at the deadline in 2017. Yeah, so real inconsistency there. Former Marlin as well. Their offense and the top half of their starting rotation are pretty awesome. I mean, even without Bryce Harper, assuming Adam Eaton stays healthy, he's had himself a couple good years, but has really struggled to stay healthy throughout that time. A couple years ago, he was, I think, batting like 360 and then got hurt for the rest of the season in on May 1st, maybe. Last year, he only played 95 games. So if he's healthy, I mean, he could be a welcome addition and a welcome replacement for Bryce Harper. You can't replace a 300, or you can't replace a guy that had over 100 RBIs that easily, but you can certainly do that in building up the, as Billy Beane said in the movie version of Moneyball, you can build up your island of misfit toys and buy runs that way. So
you cannot replace Gary Bertier.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Julius. But that being said, Trey Turner, I think is due. I think probably for a big bounce back year, and that's saying a bounce back to a 271 batting average season and 19 homers. You could see him hit 25, 30 homers, get up to 100 RBIs, especially now without Bryce batting third. But
so it comes down to the two outfielders who are replacing him, Juan Soto and then Victor Robles. The two of them, younger, sort of first-time starters last year. This is sort of their breakout year, if you will. Those two, I think, are going to drive. This team will only go as far as them. I think they're obviously their
That's
offense.
a fair point.
Yeah, I think their pitching staff is talented enough for them to win games, and they have enough depth outside of those two guys. But those two guys, I think, really, if they're able to have strong seasons and build off of what they did last year and only get better, a la Andrew Benintendi route, or Aaron Judge in his second year versus his first year. If they can only get better, then I think this team makes noise. And I think, this division is crazy and it's impossible to pick the order, but give me the over-under on wins, because we spent a ton of time on the Phillies. So we're not giving the Nationals their due. So we'll give the Nationals their due and we predict where they finish. Give me the over-under on wins.
Yeah, so over-under on wins is 88.5, 6.5 up from an 82 win season last year. Vegas is minus 130 for the over and plus 100 for the under, Greg.
Damn. 100 wins. You really think they're going to win 100 wins? They only won 82 last year.
88 is the number, not 90.
Oh, sorry. They only won 82 last year.
Yeah.
88, and the Phillies are projected to win 89, huh? Yeah, I'm going over.
All right.
I honestly think that the Mets, the Braves, and the Marlins obviously are maybe not the Mets, but definitely the Braves have a down year compared to last year.
Okay.
The Mets, I think, are almost, I don't want to say as bad as the Giants were, but almost have that Giants feel of we signed all these flashy guys and old guys, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, they're not going to do anything. Kind of
the age is what concerns me the most about the Mets.
Right. Right, and that's sort of what I feel this year, and obviously the Marlins are Marlins. So I really think it's going to be a two-team race in Philly and Washington,
Really?
and yeah, and almost. I mean, you could pretend like the Mets are you could pretend like the Braves are the Tampa Bay Rays. You could pretend like the Nationals and the Phillies are the American League East, because this division almost mirrors it. Right, you got the American League East, Red Sox, Yankees, Nationals, Phillies, and then you got Atlanta, which would be like the Rays, and then you have the Mets, which is the Blue Jays, and the Miami Marlins, which is obviously the Baltimore Orioles. So, uh, you could
They almost
argue,
matched up natural rivals too, quote unquote.
yeah, and you could argue that that's sort of how it goes, and you could argue that it's similar in that regard. So, for me, I just feel like the top two teams are going to end up winning more than. Um, the 88 and 89 games respectively. So I'm going to
Sure.
go more on the 88 there.
Okay. All right. So you kind of just went through your ranking.
No, I didn't
Just
go
to
through my
sell.
rankings.
All right. Yeah. So let's jump right into it. I think
Okay.
it's pretty much worldwide
Wait, you
agreed
didn't give us
upon
your
that
over under.
I am going to go under on the
Nice.
Nationals.
Homer pick.
We'll get to that in a second. I remember I said Atlanta at 88 wins. So it's worldwide believed, worldwide agreed upon. We could all sign a treaty that says the Miami Marlins are going to come in 5th in the National League East. Do you agree?
Yeah.
I agree with you. The Mets in 4th. It sounded like that's where you're putting them.
Back and forth. Mets and Braves for me. 3rd and
Really?
4th. Yeah. Back and
All
forth.
right.
Ultimately, I'm going to go. I think Braves dropped to 4th. I'm going to go. I'm going to go Mets in 3rd. Braves in 4th.
Wow. All right. I'm going Mets 4th. And I'm going to go Washington in 3rd. I think they have a solid enough year. I think it's like an 85 win season. I think still hanging around there. I don't think that we're going to get to these astronomical levels of wins in the National League. I think Washington still hangs around for the second wild card spot. And maybe he's battling the last week of the season, but I think Atlanta, with their youth, yes, their pitching staff is worse objectively than Washington's is. Like we were saying before, it's probably second best to the Mets. I just think Atlanta's lineup with the youth they have, that Freddie Freeman's really come into his own as an MVP type caliber player. And I think he could have that kind of a season this year, which is saying a lot considering the number of different players in the National League. But I just think Atlanta's, I said 88 wins. I think Washington's at 85. So I have them second, and the Phillies, it's hard to not say it's a homer pick. So I'm just gonna say the Phillies win the division.
Yeah, no, and I guess my pick more based on pitching. I think that the Mets, my 3rd place, my contingency is on the Mets showing out and they're starting pitching really having and doing a number on the rest of the division there, especially the Braves. I'm going to go Phillies in 2nd.
Okay.
No, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go Philly. So I'm so torn because, again, I'm torn between the Braves and the Mets in 3rd and 4th, and then I'm torn between the Phillies and Nationals 1st and 2nd. Now, I want to say Nationals because of their starting pitching is unreal. Those top 3 guys are easily the top 3 in the league. Almost rivaled the Tigers from a couple years ago with Scherzer and Price and Verlander, but hard to say that there's a better 1-2-3 combo. So that's a huge reason, but just the idea of Bryce Harper and that offense in that Babe Ruth sized ballpark, because it's not Little League field like Yankee Stadium, it's the next level up, Babe Ruth sized ballpark, that being Citizens Bank Park where the Phillies play. The idea of that offense and for 82 games at home just really makes me want to pick the Phillies in 1st over the Nationals, and I love Gabe the Babe, but that's pig with my heart. Jordy, I'm going to pick with my head. I'm going to pick the Nationals starting pitching and enough of an offensive filling the gap from Harper leaving. Nationals first, Phillies second.
Yeah, so my whole thought is the Phillies have the best offense or the best lineup they can put out. I think they have the fourth best pitching staff. One of the better bullpens, but starting pitching is the big question mark. So really, what really is going to stick out is how close are they in the division when the trade deadline rolls around? Do they go out and do they get another arm? But I think that this offense and the clip that they can run at is enough to help out with those arms on the starting end, because like I was talking about, when the bats went dead last year in August, you started to see slowly but surely that affect the starting staff from the bottom up. Those bottom three guys, instead of having a clip where one of them might have had a bad start, but the other two at the very least went okay, and one of them had a stud afternoon or night, maybe two of them had a bad start, and then all three of them were. And Arrieta eventually just completely melted down, and as it turned out, he was hurt for most of the second half last year. Nola still did pretty well, but eventually hit him too. He did not finish the season strong last year. We talked about this when we talked about why we both agreed on DeGrom winning the Cy Young Award for last season. But I think when that offense is humming, it really helps give that starting pitching confidence. I still don't think that the staff as a whole is anywhere close to the best in the division, even with the bullpen that they're supporting this year. But I just think that offense is in the lefties ballpark that it is, with the immense winds that blow. I'm trying to think of what direction left field is, but they blow out of left field. I just think it helps out that lineup a lot. I'll leave it at that. Help with Ryan Howard, it help with Chase Utley, and it'll help with Bryce Harper.
And Reese just eats that park alive.
Oh, Reese loves it, baby. Oh man.
I mean, Herrera does well too. Weirdly enough.
Oh yeah. I think he'll have a better year. It'll be really interesting to see how Herrera, Hernandez, and Franco do on the bottom half of the lineup now instead of being on the top half of the lineup. I know I said that before, but that'll be a really interesting storyline to follow along too.
Oh yeah, and having a guy like Harper and even Reese a full year now, right, for him, because he got called up a couple games after, right?
No, Reese played the whole year last year.
Okay, I thought he was one of those.
It was 2 years ago. He got called up in July.
Okay, I thought he was one of those Chris Bryant things. But having a guy like Harper who's going to take all those, how do you say, hardest pitches, right? If you will, like everyone's trying to avoid him, so they give the guy ahead of him a pitch to hit, so that guy can hopefully pop out as opposed to walking him and getting him on and having to face Bryce. So, but ultimately, I think pitching wins out in the end for me.
No, and that's fair. That's the biggest question mark coming into the Phillies year. As I mentioned, it's hard not to be a homer. I also have some money on the Phillies winning 90 games, so trying to help my wallet there, Greg. But I'm gonna to keep it with the Phillies, but move on to our segments with Stadium Snacks, Greg. I want to tell you about a couple things coming to Citizens Bank Park and try to entice you to come to a ball game down here. Since I went up to Fenway last year, continue the home and home tradition that we do. How does that sound to you for Stadium Snacks?
Let's hear it.
All right. So one thing they did do, Greg, they have this bar called McFadden's. And McFadden's, you could enter the ballpark through McFadden's. They decided to tear it down, or not tear it down, but they decided to gut it out. Half of it is now a Shake Shack. The other half is a beer garden, which it's called Pass and Stow, which are named after the guys who recast the original Liberty Bell, because now they have the original Veterans Stadium Liberty Bell outside of Citizens Bank Park, which I don't know why they didn't have that before, but they do. So now they have this beer garden there. Sounds awesome. They have a Shake Shack inside the stadium. They have that at the Wells Fargo Center. Apparently they did a number of different paint jobs. It's all exciting. It'll be really cool to see. One item that I'm just going to touch on quickly is Questlove has his own cheesesteak that is being sold at the stadium. It is a vegetarian cheesesteak. So it is made with Impossible 2.0 meat, topped with a cheese sauce and a pepper relish. Apparently, you can find it in a number of different sections. The one I do want to talk to you about, Greg, is called the Donut Burger.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the description on Philly.com. Can't decide between sweet and savory? Get both with a bacon cheeseburger served on a glazed donut, topped with a spicy pepper jam. You can find this at the Boardwalk Eats, because we're close to the Jersey Shore, so there's a boardwalk area in left field.
Okay,
but this sounds incredible. The picture of it, Greg, is a glazed donut. Just regular glaze. On a normal donut. Little juicy patty. Got a little melted cheese, which I might skip that part, but you got the bacon. It's almost like a Baconator. Just I hope it's weaved over to almost create its own patty of bacon. Spicy pepper jam. Big fan of that. I've never had Aramark's version of it, but or at least not at a baseball stadium. I think Aramark used to be the food provider for one of my old work offices. But spicy pepper jam, if it's done well, can really be tie the whole thing together. Really explore the space.
Pepper jam, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't say I've ever had it, but I'll tell you one thing. You make this food sound, if I may say so, unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I always try to, Greg. I always try to outdo myself. Always try to impress, Greg. That's how I operate.
So Jordy, you may have convinced me.
You're gonna make an appearance?
Based on that and having to try it all, I might just have to. But let me.
Are we gonna get 2 appearances of Greg in South Philly? One for the Phillies and one for when the Patriots come to town?
And for the GD Thunder Cup. So I don't see you coming to Boston more than once. I mean, I came to Philly like 6 times last year. Anyway.
Oh, you came once. You came for the Thunder Cup. I went to Boston last year.
Give me some end of the season awards, Jordy.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair to do.
Off the cuff. AL MVP.
I'm gonna go with Mookie.
Back to back, huh?
Yeah, I think so. It's just, off the cuff, I think the Red Sox are gonna have a great year. I think Mookie will have another great year. If Trout's, big money is gonna be, boost him that way, but I don't think the Angels are having a lights out year. So I don't think, once again, sadly with Mike Trout, I just don't think he's going to be on the headlines as much as Mookie leading one of the best teams in baseball.
So you say that, but every single year Mike Trout wins the MVP or almost wins the MVP. And yet his team has made the playoffs once, if that. So
yeah, they have. And Mike Trout's one of the best players in baseball.
I don't disagree. But you can't. Your argument for not giving it to him was because his team never wins. But my point is that I'm going to give it to Mike Trout because MLB baseball writers are a bunch of POSs, and it should go to Mookie.
Podcast, Greg, you know that.
It should go to Mookie. Agreed. But ultimately, I think they gave Mookie 1 year. They're just flip flopping Mookie Trout, Mookie Trout, Mookie Trout. Jordy, National League MVP, what do you got?
Oof, that's a good question. I'm going to go with Anthony Rizzo.
Nice. Yeah. What a sleeper pick.
Yeah. I think I picked the Cubs to win that division. I think they beat the projections, Greg. If you are not following this storyline, all the computers have the Cubs coming in last place in the American League Central, and all 5 teams winning like 88 games.
National League Central. That's
National League Central. But so I think the Cubs beat all the computers and win the division. And I think Anthony Rizzo is a big part of that.
That's so silly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like literally, Nate Silver had it, and we all know Nate Silver's passed with projections, but then like MLB.com's projections, I think, had it, and a lot of other ones do too. So that's one to find out. Chicago versus the computers. The sushi man of Joe Madden, who went to a college in Easton, versus the computer. The things that his GM and president have built his team around. Theo's a big computer guy.
I'm never a fan of. I've never really been a fan of Joe Madden, but So the trendy pick right now is people saying Ronald Acuna, but I'm going with his teammate Freddie Freeman.
Yeah, I like that.
I just think that all the talk is gonna be on Markakis, Acuna. Freeman's gonna get a lot of. He's there every year. He's one of those guys that kind of like the Arizona first baseman there that kind of deserves it, but
he's now St. Louis first baseman.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, he got switched to St. Louis. Yeah. But my point is that I think it's time. I think Freeman deserves to get one. Jordy, American League Cy Young. Is this Kluber, Bauer, Cole, Sale, Verlander, Snell? I mean, this I feel like the Cy Young in the American League. There's so many more candidates than the National League. Is it possible to pick a favorite? Who do you realistically think would win?
Yeah, that's tough. I can't even pick my top three. Off the cuff, I'm going to go with Kluber, but I think he could be like fifth in voting.
Everyone keeps saying that, and yeah, everyone keeps saying Kluber and Bauer, Garrett Cole. I don't
know about Trevor Bauer. He gets hurt too much for me to like actually rely on a pick of that sort of thing. I know this is all for fun, but I don't know about Bauer. That's the only one I'm sure about. I'm probably going to be dead wrong. He's going to win 22 games and strike out 300 batters, but I don't know on March 26th about Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, I think Blake Snell. You and I talked about Blake Snell back to back, but I'm gonna go Chris Sale. He hasn't won one. You know what? Actually, just kidding. I'm not going Chris Sale. He pitched too late in the season. He stumbled down the stretch like he did last year, and then he pitched late into October. So I'm not going that. Yeah, I guess
was last year when he had all the stomach problems, or was that 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Last year he claimed to get a belly button ring, but it was really
that's what it was. Yeah.
Shoulder being tired. Yeah. I'm gonna go Kluber, I guess. Anyways, National League Cy Young Award winner Scherzer, DeGrom, Nola. I feel like those are the three real candidates. What do you think? Or anyone not on that list?
I'm gonna go. I was gonna say maybe Noah Syndergaard.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably go with him. Hope he has a bounce back year and reclaims Mjolnir, or for the MCU fans, Stormbreaker, and just he goes for the head of the Cy Young voters.
I'm going Scherzer.
Yeah, I think the one thing with Scherzer is I don't know if it's just the last. I don't even know if it's the last time I saw him, but seeing him against the Red Sox and struggling there just really kind of soured me on all that.
I agree, and the fact that he let a pitcher hit a double off him and a couple RBIs, I 100% agree with you. The only thing I'm going to say is he has to step up. He has no other choice but to step up because they lost Harper. And now they have.
He puts the team on his back, though.
Yeah, but now they have two other studs behind him who will take some of that pressure off him.
That's actually a really good point. Adding Corbin probably helps Scherzer a ton.
Exactly, and that allows him to sort of feel some less pressure. Do you know enough about Rookie of the Year rookies?
I wouldn't be able to give a legit pick for that. Well, we can save that for the first.
We know who the American League one's going to be.
Oh yeah. What's his face?
He's a junior.
Yeah, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Yeah,
nailed it.
Nailed it. Do you think Fernando Tatis Jr. gets the double junior? I don't know when he gets called up though for the Padres. That's the only thing I don't know about.
Yeah, everyone keeps saying this Victor Robles kid from the Nationals.
He could be. He did pretty well for them.
That's what the trendy pick is. Sorry, that's the trendy pick.
Well, this this is what happens every year though. Is that, like, there's the trendy pick, and then some dude comes out of nowhere like Juan Soto and has this unreal season starting in like May.
But then Acuna was the trendy pick last year, and he was the correct one.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely was the correct one, but Soto made a legitimate claim for it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Jordy, any Bleach creatures?
The only one I can really think about, there's one that's not really a bleacher creature; it's more of a clubhouse creature. Was Carlos Santana just bashing in televisions because he didn't like that guys were playing Fortnite during games last year in the Phillies clubhouse.
Damn.
One though that's more of a booth bandit was the alliteration I thought of, and it's not baseball related. But did you see Will Ferrell as Ron Burgundy calling the LA Kings game last weekend?
I heard about it.
So you need to go look up this video. The Kings put it up, and it's like I think it's all 30 minutes of like in play action of Will Ferrell as Ron Burgundy calling this fucking period, and it's all the like by the beard of Great Odin's Raven, Uncle Jonathan's corn cob pipe. He uses all of that effortlessly in calling a hockey game, and it's incredible. I mean, there are clips of just the highlights. I would recommend just throwing on the full 30-minute video and just having that on in the background. It'll sound like you're listening to a game on the radio, and it's incredible. He describes it perfectly. Again, he uses those Ron Burgundy-isms. It's hilarious, and it just makes me. Anchorman 2 came a little too late, and I think if they tried an Anchorman 3, I don't know if it works, but Anchorman is one of those quintessential movies that it might be the ultimate comedy, Greg.
Agreed. It's hilarious. I'll have to check it out for sure. Mine would be so keeping in the National League NL East theme, a little bit of a self-serving one, but the New York Mets just bought the Syracuse the minor league team. Now the Syracuse Mets. So what the New York Mets did today, in an off day before they head back to New York City for in promotion to build up this new minor league team, they did. I think you and I talked about this. They had the Mets, do batting practice, pitching live in the Carrier Dome in Syracuse.
That's pretty cool. Do they have the ability to like make the Carrier Dome usable for baseball games, or is there no way to like move the bleachers for the football field out?
So they played softball games there last year.
Really?
Yeah, the softball team, and they might have some this year too, but the softball team had played a couple games last year and the year before, and because I know the weather is bad, all that stuff. So it may not be, because I know softball feels a little smaller than baseball. It may not be big enough because Syracuse doesn't have a men's baseball team, so it may not be big enough for that.
So it doesn't even matter. Okay.
Right. They definitely can play softball.
Yeah. Have they ever tried to use it for? Do they still only have women's hockey, or do they have a men's team yet?
No, just women's.
Just women's.
There was talk of doing a hockey game for the local minor league team.
You have an AHL team. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they have the Syracuse Crunch. Not me, but the Syracuse does. They have a Syracuse Crunch.
Yeah, that's right.
So there was talk of doing that, but the dome's just way too hot. It would never work out.
Okay.
But Jordy,
that's what I need to check out. I need to come to the dome sometime.
Yeah, it's a blast for sure.
Yeah.
You know what, Jordy, though? That was cool. I thought it was a little unique thing for them to do and go through.
Awesome. But I did see that. Did you see that their flight got in like 3.5 hours late?
Oh shit! No.
Yeah, it landed at I think 1 a.m. local time last night.
Damn. Man,
it's something like the engine wouldn't start.
The good news is that there's not a lot to do in Syracuse, so it's probably unless Syndergaard and DeGrom wanted to talk to the college co-eds, but there's not a lot to do up at Syracuse, so probably for the better.
Probably.
Jordy, World Series prediction.
Ooh,
off the cuff. This is our last one before the regular season starts.
I'm going to go with I'm I'm going to pick the Astros over the Cubs.
Nice. You're really all in on the Cubs, huh?
Yeah, I think they have a bounce back year, man. I think the Dodgers, I think they have, this is a bit of a down year. They're a little banged up entering the year. I don't know where they're really at. And I think, I love the concept of the Cubs versus the computer. And I think Joe Madden's going to probably bring David Copperfield in to be like, hey, yeah, this guy, he doesn't use computers and you guys can do whatever you want, even though I went to Lafayette and that school sucks.
Oh, is Lafayette not a good school?
Lafayette is a college, and as you and I can say as university graduates,
Sorry, did Lafayette? Did they make? Did they do better? How'd they do in the tournament?
They didn't make the tournament. Colgate made the tournament out of the Patriot League.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. Actually, though, speaking of Lafayette baseball, they had a guy against Lehigh actually this weekend who, in a 3-game series, Greg, hit 3 home runs and had 15 RBIs. How about that?
Damn, that's impressive.
Yeah, pretty insane. What about you? What's your World Series pick?
It's tough. Again, the trendy pick is the Braves, but I'm going Brewers. I'm going Red Sox.
I could see that.
I'm going Red Sox over Brewers.
Okay.
Just kidding. I don't really foresee the Red Sox
back, baby.
I don't really foresee the Red Sox doing that. Just because of how the toll it took on them last year. I would love to see
that's going to be the American League playoffs.
Exactly. I would love to see it, and quite frankly, that would be that's picking with my heart. That's picking with my heart.
That'd be that kid's 17th parade.
Yeah, exactly. Picking with my heart. If I was picking with my head, Nationals over Brewers, but reality, I'm picking Red Sox over Brewers.
Nationals over Brewers? Nationals is transferring leagues.
Astros. Nationals, Astros.
I think the Astros are. I think it's a fine pick.
No, it's really the Red Sox. I'm picking the Red Sox.
Yeah. Who outside of the Red Sox and the Astros though? Who in the American League do you think is a legit shot?
The Astros and the Red Sox.
You don't think the Indians have the wherewithal to try to make some sort of a move?
Well, here's the thing: is I don't really foresee outside of the wild card game being the Yankees versus someone different than who they played last year. Someone different than the Athletics. It could be like the Twins or some random team like that. Even the Rays, the Yankees in the wild card again. I don't foresee the top 4 teams, Yankees, Red Sox, Astros, Indians, changing. So I think it's going to be the same 4 division matchups.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, the same 4 second round or whatever, really the first round, but second round games, because the playing game is just that, a playing game, not the first round. So I think it's going to be the same 4 there.
The first round. I think it's the wild card round.
Right. I think it's the same 4 there, and then I just think the Astros and the Red Sox are that much better than. I guess it depends on the matchup at that point, because if the Astros are the 1 seed, Astros are the 1 seed, Yankees the 4 seed, then Astros, Red Sox again. But if it's Indians, Yankees somehow, and Astros, Red Sox in the first round, then we're having a different conversation, and whoever comes out of the Astros, Red Sox, I think beats the Indians or Yankees personally. So
no.
Realistically, yes, Jordy, it's the playoffs. Any of those 4 teams, it's a 4-team race. Any of those 4 teams really could do it, but the National League's way more wide open than the American League.
It'll be really interesting to see how the National League shakes out, and I think this might be. And I know there's the rule changes and everything, but it's going to be the one trade deadline is going to be really intriguing to see how the month of July shakes out.
Yes, they're not doing the whole trade during waiver things anymore, huh?
Yeah, they took that away. They made it. I think it was you and I that talked about it the day that this passed, or was it Matty D? But they made it a little more easy to understand. Just one trade deadline. Don't have to explain the process of putting a guy on waivers and having him clear and how that all works. So, good on you, baseball.
And they got rid of the DL. It's now the IL.
Yes, it is the injured league or injured list. Injured league. Yikes. That's worse than what the disabled list was. Why the disabled list got changed. Apologies. But Greg, anything else before we get this season officially underway on Thursday?
Go Sox.
I hear that, man. Go Phils.
Hey,
and make sure. What was that?
Go Sox. Red Sox.
For all you guys out there, thank you so much for checking out these spring training previews. We hope you guys stick around with us throughout the season. Greg and I will be back. We'll actually need to figure out when we're going to be back to break down the first week of the season. What is that, Greg?
For all those people out there, Jordy knows his stuff. He's the guy who has the inside track. He knows baseball. He knows the sports pod. I know you're listening to it now. I may not have had my A game tonight, but Jordy always the consummate.
You always have the A game. Don't worry there.
Jordy always the consummate professional. Always carries the squad. I promise you, the jokes are fast and flying. I challenge Jordy more than we do. Ask Jordy questions. We put him on the spot, and normally the pod is awesome and great.
It was awesome tonight, Greg.
I'm just saying these are more previews than what it's like in the regular season. And
little taste.
So the regular season, yeah.
See how it feels.
Nailed it. Go back and listen to pods from last year if you need to know what it's like to see the regular season pods. But it's gonna be great. This season's gonna be great, and I can't wait until the Bruins win the cup and the Celtics win the NBA Finals and we sweep Boston.
Hot takes there.
Boston sweeps 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the only time it's going to happen, and realistically, it's not going to happen. But those are the reality is this is the only year it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just hoping all 4 Philadelphia teams make the playoffs in 1 year, which isn't going to happen this year because the Flyers are pretty much dead.
Make the playoffs, huh? Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, a man can dream. I want to go to a home game for all 4 teams in 1 year. Not everybody's got all the luxuries of Boston and all that. But we're getting off the rails here.
Real quick, before we finish. All right. The 76ers and Celtics are a 4-5 matchup right now?
No, the Sixers are the 3.
Oh, they moved up.
Yeah, they moved up. They passed Indiana.
Okay, good. I was going to say, because no 4 and 5 seed has ever won the NBA Finals.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's like the talk right now all over Boston because they're saying how, and this was again, yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
I didn't realize that. Well, that's going to do it for us. Make sure you like, share, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Greg and I are going to be back in. I'm not sure when we're going to break down the first week of the season, but we also do our hockey podcast for those that have never listened to that, Blue Line Icing. We need to figure out a time to do that to preview the end of the season and then preview the playoffs because that's like 2.5 weeks away. Matty D, the other co-host, who's also a big Phillies fan, and I will probably record some sort of basketball type nonsense because the tournaments in full swing and all that good stuff. And then we have a bunch of other nonsensical podcasts, 10 topics, 5 minutes, where we just put yourself explanatory, pick 10 topics, spend 5 minutes on each of them. Make sure you like and share and subscribe to the podcast. Search the Bullpen Cart on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on Twitter, ThunderBLG, Thunderblog Sports on Instagram and Facebook. Greg, thank you as always. I thought your A game was here and was on fire tonight, and I am so excited for this season, my man.
Jordy, go Sox, go Bees, go C's. And obviously the Pats are the world champs.
Let's go, Phils, babe. Everybody have a great week.
Was that a universal babe, or was that specific to 1 or 2 people who listen?
Just to Gabe the babe.
Nice. Wow, thinks on his feet quickly. Let's go.
Oh yeah.
I love Gabe the babe.
Oh yeah.
What a guy.
He's the babe. He is the babe.
What a guy.
Let's go, Phils. Have a good week, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.